Hi, I just want to talk today about the possibility of banning the Quran or balancing the books, balancing the holy books, meaning balancing the message, meaning let us read, if we're not going to ban the Quran, which there may be a case for that, then we need to ensure that people read the Bible as well and balance what is in the Quran in order that we can stop this terrorism. And have a better society, more integrated society anyway. Now, I say that there's possibly even a legal basis for banning the Quran, as it is, because it's anti-Semitic and incites war. But in Surah 5:51, it says, "O you who believe, take not the Jews and Christians for friends. They are friends one to another. He among you who takes them for friends is one of them. Lo, Allah guides not a wrongdoing folk." So it's actually telling the Muslims there that it's a wrong thing to actually befriend Jews and Christians. How can it be that they can integrate when they're believing words like this that are coming from God? And then also there are many scriptures which incite to kill. In Surah 9:38, for instance, it says, "O you believe, what aileth you that when it is said unto you, go forth in the way of Allah, if you are bowed to the ground with heaviness, take you pleasure in the life of this world rather than that in the hereafter? The comfort of the life of this world is but little in the hereafter. If you know go not forth, he will afflict you with a painful doom." Now, 2 verses later, it says on 41, "Go forth light-armed and heavy-armed, and strive with your wealth and your lives in the way of Allah." And in verse 72, Allah promised to believers, men and women, gardens underneath which flow, wherein they will abide blessed dwellings in the Garden of Eden. And O Prophet, strive against the disbelievers and the hypocrites, be harsh with them. Their ultimate abode is hell, a hapless journey's end. And then in verse 111, 911, "Lo, Allah hath purchased from the believers their lives and their wealth, because the gardens will be theirs when they shall fight in the way of Allah, and shall slay and be slain. It is a binding promise on him, on God, binding on God, in the Torah and in the Gospel and the Qur'an. Rejoice in your bargain that you have made, for that is the supreme triumph. O you who believe, fight those of the disbelievers who are near to you, and let them find harshness in you, and know that Allah is with you, with those who keep their duty unto him." Now, politicians ask, why is it that young men and people go to fight with ISIS, or why we're having this terrorism? And it's because of these verses that people are believing without the balance of the Bible. Now, or even the balance of the other verses in the Quran, because if they also read in the Quran, it says we need to read the scriptures from aforetime. The Quran is saying this, meaning the Bible and the Gospel, the Bible, the Torah and the Gospels. In Surah 4:136, it says, "O you who believe, believing Allah and his messenger and the scripture which he has revealed unto his messenger, and the scripture which he revealed aforetime," which is the Bible, as I say, and which carries the Torah and the prophets of the Israelites, and the like Moses and Samuel and Daniel and Isaac. It says so that we should be reading these as well as obviously if they want to read the Quran as well, because the Quran does say that it does bring to our attention that we shouldn't say God is three in Surah 4:173. 171, sorry, it says, so believe in Allah and his messengers being plural, and say not three. Cease, it is better for you. Allah is only one God, and far is it removed from his transcendent majesty that he should have a son. So, first of all, we should read the scriptures for a foretime, meaning the Bible, and then it's a case that, yes, it's worthwhile reading the Qur'an, because it's saying here that we shouldn't be calling God three, which is quite true. It's referring to the Trinity teaching that the Christian Church has, which isn't right. I've read the Bible several times, and it's very ambiguous, this teaching about the Trinity, and some verses have been altered. In 1 John 5, there's a verse substantially there implying that the Spirit of God is three, but that was only entered in around the century of the 14th century, 1,400 years after Christ brought his teaching, and the disciples were there. So it's something that has probably been added in order to support the Trinity, because they established the Trinity teaching in the year 325 AD, because there was a lot of squabbling about, who and what God was. And I think there's a great error there that is very present still. And due to that error, and appealing to the Pope and the Archbishop of Canterbury, due to that error, we teach the Trinity, even though it's not really strictly mentioned in the Bible. Neither the Jews nor the Muslims will look at the Gospel, and we are actually concealing the true message, the true gospel of Jesus. And maybe it is even the case that we don't receive the healings and the miraculous that we're meant to receive due to this Trinity teaching, because God can't confirm what is an error. So I appeal to the Archbishop of Canterbury and the Pope on this matter. So, again, we need to balance the books, and it's a little bit also like the issue about, we have go forth and multiply in Genesis, which is something that was told Adam and Eve before the world, they were the first couple, supposedly, and they were told to go forth and multiply. But now there are billions of people on the earth, and some that are starving, and children are born and starve, and there's not enough work or water or food for many in the world. Now, it's the case that both Muslims, Jews and Christians, the evangelical type Christians particularly, and the Muslims, and I think some of the Orthodox Jews, believe in this go forth and multiply, and don't use contraception as much. For instance, even though Syria, for instance, was poor, and the African countries are poor, they don't use contraception because they believe that, we should just multiply and give birth, and that it's a blessing from God, and it's going against God's will if we hinder the propagation of the human race. And that you will have, for instance, there was an immigrant family that were given a home in Wales, and they were a family of 7 children. Now, our society will break down if we have immigrants of that level, or many Muslims having families of that size and expecting the benefits as well. And it's the same with, you find many Christian families also have large families, and the Jews too, 4 or 5, and many of the immigrant families coming across over from Turkey and go through to Germany, you could see they had 4 or 5 children with them, even though, presumably they came from a country that was fairly poor even before the war began. And we have the Pope, or the Catholic teaching, hindering by giving a message out saying that contraception shouldn't be used, only certain types of contraception, which are not very reliable. And there's no real basis for this in the Bible that, or in the Qur'an, that unlimited birth is a command. It isn't in there. It's very ambiguous, and there is no clear command and we have people dying, and we need to be sensible, and we need to know these books well before we make these decisions. And the teachers, even of the Archbishop of Canterbury and the Pope and the imams, they need to know both of these books well. They're sending out messages that are causing great trouble in the world. And I think even with regard to the Trinity, I hope that the Archbishop of Canterbury will look into it, because this too is hindering the acceptance of the gospel by the Muslims and the Jews, and it's not a correct teaching. As I say, I've read the Bible and the Qur'an, and it's not in there like that, and it's an error. It's an error, and so as well as suggesting to the Muslims that they really thoroughly look at the Bible as well, and don't seek to change it just because an imam or a teacher says that we should change it, because these people who say that there's a Torah that has not been changed, they don't produce any such book. And anybody could go out there and say, oh yes, there's another book out there, but we've lost it now, we haven't got it now, but the one that you've got here isn't right. If you're looking for truth, or to see whether something is true or not, to see whether there really is a God or not, you have to accept what we have that are taken from old documents, even as the Qur'an has been taken from an old document. And particularly because by reading just the Qur'an only, it is causing the terrorism we have now, and you're acting only on part of the message of God, because and you're not looking at the verses, even as some Christians don't look on all the verses, because I agree there's much to read, and it's taken me 60 years to actually balance the Bible, even because the Christians say give to the preachers, and God will give back to you, pressed down and shaken together, and everything will rebound to you. But you give and give and give, and you just get poorer and poorer and poorer. Sometimes, although I think sometimes God does assist you, but there has to be a balance, and it's a bit like the healing message that's in the Bible. Maybe we should even ban the Bible because of this, because I, for one, believed in healing, and I refused operation, I refused drugs, and at the end of the day, over a period of years, I became very ill and ended up in ITU. And I may yet have to have another operation because I refused an operation 10 years ago, which I believe God had led me into refusing it. But, I think probably the problem is still there, and I now may have an operation, which would be worse for me now than it would have been 10 years ago. So maybe there should be a warning, actually printed warning on both the Bible and the Qur'an, that the Bible should be read with the Qur'an and the Qur'an with the Bible, and a warning in these messages, the warning about the healing and about the giving of the money, the warning about going forth to war and killing in the Qur'an, printed, and that it is law that if Bibles are sold, that these warnings must be on these books, and that if a Bible is sold, then a Qur'an must be sold, and if a Qur'an is sold, a Bible must be sold, so that these books become universally bound up together, that all society knows both message, and that then these errors that are creating the terrorism can be abolished and will cease, and we will understand each other more. There's of integration, because we will have balanced the books, and truth will prevail, if there is such a thing of truth. And truth, the sense of truth, comes from what is in these books. And as one Syrian lady called out over TV, on one of the news reports, when the Syrian war first started, and in all the trauma she was going through, and she said, is this truth? Is this truth? And I'd say, no, the Qur'an on its own is not truth. You have to read both the Bible and the Qur'an, and then we will have truth, because the Trinity is wrong as well. And I appeal to the Pope and Archbishop of Canterbury again to look at this and to reconsider and make an announcement concerning this, please, for the sake of the world.